All right, so Frank, for the second time, we spoke about Vito Guzzo, one of your peers on the street. This individual is older than you, not necessarily a peer, but somebody who you were around a lot, coming of age as a criminal in New York City. We're going to be talking about Vito Grimaldi, right? A proprietor of Grimaldi Bakery, basically a New York institution at this point. I mean, they've been around in the game decades and decades and decades in the bread making
Mhm.
industry. Definitely a New York City institution at this point, or at least a Queens institution. Talk about Vito Grimaldi, how you met him, reputation, and how that gets started for you.
I um I knew Vito for a long time, not on a personal level as a kid, but he was another guy that used to come Tony Giordano's house, Santo Giordano. They were friends. Um I meet Joe around, I don't know, probably at 18, 19, a little bit older than the rest of my friends.
His
And
son.
we get close. We get Joe being his son, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we get close, and we do the regular things. We go club and we hang out. There was this kid Bobby had a club in our neighborhood, some Austrian kid, Bobby Wiziak actually, and so Joe used to go there. I used to go there sometimes, and there was another guy, Louis Restio, was a captain in the family. His son Vinny used to go to the club now and then, and and Joe used to come back to Ridgewood. That was his dad's stomping grounds when he was a young person. And then they had a granddad too, who was in the life, and which I got close. As we got closer, we definitely had different people. He had his dad. I had my uncle. If I got in trouble, I started off with my uncle Cheech Navarro, who we talk about. But it's kind of different. I felt like I had more in common with Vito than I did with my uncle. We could talk about them. Like Vito was a baseball fan. I was a baseball fan. Joe was a baseball fan. We liked the Mets, but originally he liked the Brooklyn Dodgers, and he got me into the whole history of how the Mets were actually, Brooklyn Dodger fans were actually became Met fans later on. But that was it. We would pal around. We'd get in trouble sometimes. A couple of club fights. Me and Joe. We had a couple of big ones, and eventually I go on a lamp for something around I don't know 93, and when I go on the lamp, my uncle's just probably had enough of me. I'm getting in trouble, and it's kind of trouble he don't need. He's a very successful mob guy, business wise. He's got his own things to worry about. He kind of didn't need me to be giving him that kind of heat, but I was closer to Vito's son Joe than I was to my cousins. And when I came back, started working with my brother. He had a place, he had a bar, and I started helping him out. That didn't work out. There was a lot of false promises and shit, and just didn't work out, whatever. So I kind of went on my own for a while, and just on the streets, working here, working there, doing whatever I had to do. Swindle, or whatever, fuck, scheming rather. Um, so one day I went up to my uncle, and this was like the beginning of the end between both of us. I said, "Hey, look, you got friends in the unions or something like that. Set me up there." I goes, "You need me to set you up?" I said, "Yeah, well, you're my uncle. You know what I mean? You need me to go break fucking windows and shit for you, you know?"
Yeah.
Um, he goes, "Well, you got to do what you got to do, even if it's collecting cans." I said, "What?" I said, "I put him on the burner. That was just him being fucking who he was. There was no talking back, and I just whatever. It was on. Whatever fucking I had to do at that point, I did. It wasn't like I was into drugs or anything like that. It's just I didn't. I don't know. There was a lot of fucking. You know how you got that rivalry between siblings? I just felt that he needed to degrade me just to make his kids look better than me. He did a lot of that.
But let me ask you: was there no money making opportunities between you and your
There
uncle?
was, and he had given it to me 3 to 4 months out of the year. We worked the games.
Okay.
Um, I wasn't good with money to his defense. So let's say if I wanted to lend money, I wasn't the one to lend money because if I had like fucking 10,000, 50,000 hanging around, that was going straight to fucking I'll be gone in a weekend.
All right. Yeah.
So to his defense, but just put me somewhere. I do that. I do whatever I got to do. Like every time he needed something, even Even after I fucking left that situation, he would call me. Hey, I need you to do something or whatever. Or or shit like, I'm still your uncle. Just remember that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, whatever, fuck, whatever. So I got close to Vito on that sense, and he was really good to me. He knew Cosa Nostra enough to articulate it to me and another friend I started bringing around, who is in the life today, and he articulated to the point without giving himself up. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So Vito at that, what was he in his like 50s or something at that point?
Yeah, he was oh wow, probably a little older. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe about mid-50s. Mid
Yeah. So
50s.
how long had he been around the life?
Oh, he's another one that was born around the life. His dad was in the life, but Vito was American, but very Sicilian at heart.
Okay.
Listen, the most by far, and without like the most fucking loyalist guy when it came to that life. He was loyal to his friends. He was loyal to that life. Um, it's a shame what happened at that funeral. He did not deserve that. That was the utmost disrespect, especially for a man like that who was a fucking
Yeah, that's incredibly embarrassing.
he
Yeah.
was just a fucking gem, bro. Yeah, that guy would have hung out under a fucking car for his friends in that life. Well, you understand if you had to, as old as he was. So to do that shit, that was he was funny too, but quiet, laid back and subdued, and I had ways of making him laugh, and he would laugh. Um, he had a boat out in the water. We used to go up, and he used to like having us on, and we used to have episodes, bro. I'm not gonna repeat. I mean, it was all dialogue. It was nothing physical. But we used to talk about shit, and he used to like turn red and laugh. But he was that guy, really good guy. I think he was a victim, like many of us. I was one too. Messinoisms that we little by little just started drinking the Kool-Aid, and started losing a little bit of our Sicilian ways, a little bit. I did, thinking this guy was what he was, not knowing that he would lie to take people out of the way that were in his way. And that was one of his fucking MOs. He did that with Gabriel Infante too. That he's the guy who was supposed to dispose of Caesar's body,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he was a higher up at the point. And with that excuse that his leg was sticking out or whatever, or his arm, he had that guy killed. This was Messino. So we all were, whatever Sicilians were left at that point of the game, where Sal was getting a little bit control of the family, while Joe was in there. They were Messino. They become Messino believers, and that's the mob I was growing up into. And a lot of my friends, I kind of like owe them apologies. The kids I grew up, especially in the Giannini crew kids that were around the Gambino family, who didn't drink that Kool-Aid, didn't give a fuck about the Americans that much. Um, and it was because, look, we are who we are. Just because our people ain't around, don't mean that fucking we got to be kissing these people's ass. And this was particularly Messino. Look at the bad things he's done. But that was the times. That's where we were at. They had a coffee shop on at that time. They had a coffee shop. I was about 25, maybe, on Metropolitan area. They just opened up. He had putting this guy in there that was a little green in the coffee shop, and you'd think he was good. His name was Frankie. Good guy, died. And he was like, he was a really good guy. I mean, he was a cab driver too at one time. So he put him there. He goes, "Hey, why don't you go help him run the fucking place, and we'll put you over there." He goes, "And I'll talk to your uncle."
Okay.
So I guess he talked to my uncle. I know he did. He wouldn't lie to me. And he goes to me, your uncle told me whatever. If I need something, I ask you. We're good. We're good. Like, in other words, I'm with you and me now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how that happened. But yeah, I was real bitter at my uncle for a while. He had the games. I stopped going to them. I didn't work for him anymore. I was more loyal to this side.
You think
We
he liked that, your uncle?
Who?
Your uncle, Cheech.
No, of course not. Because if I was doing good, that means he fucked up. And I was gifted at fucking up too at times. So it was just him saying, "I told you so." He would say that, but Vito had given me. He had given me to his to his credit, giving me a lot of chance. I mean, fuck, I would fuck off. He'd come back. I even ran his. I was one of. I didn't run the whole thing, but I was a manager at one of his not one, the bakery. Um, during a very tough time in my life, my dad had died, and then my mom just had a heart attack 8 months later, and he was really, really supportive of what was going on, and me not going over the fucking edge. But like Joe was we were like brothers at one time for sure. But
Well, let me ask you about the bakery because
yeah,
I could speak for New York City. Growing up in Queens, we all have our local bakery. That's the good bakery. Everyone in the neighborhood knows everyone that works there. This and that. It's very wholesome. However, maybe the guys that own that bakery aren't really doing the most wholesome activities. So what was their reputation in the neighborhood? Was it an open thing like, oh yeah, those guys are
no. Their reputation was one of the bread people, and then there was always talk. Yeah, he might have the connections or whatever, but
okay, it's one of
they
those
were bread.
things.
Listen, they have the best Kaiser roll in New York City.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, it's a
Yeah,
good reputation. I'm sure the customer service is great, but behind it all, the neighborhood, there was just like little whispers or whatever every once in a while, I guess.
yeah, but that's even the pizza guy gets that. But yeah, of course,
Right,
I'm not, I'm not
right.
going to deny that. But at the same time, it wasn't. Oh, I'll go in there and we're going to see somebody fucking get beat
Oh, of
up.
course not. Yeah.
Let me tell you, son. That place that he would use this term too. This is a fucking church. The last thing you fucking do is raise your hands to anybody here. He had a good hand too. Yeah. But a fucking real good man. A real good man. His kids were all good too. One was married to Joe. Joe C.
Josie, yeah.
Yeah. And they were just good fucking people.
So what do you start doing for Vito? What's your thing? What's a typical day? We see that surveillance footage. You guys are just,
We'll
surveillance image.
talk
You guys are just rolling down the street or whatever. But what's like a typical day?
with him. We would go to his office. He would talk about anything, but not criminal. I said this before. It could be the sports, could be the fucking uh, it's politics, whatever. Crossword puzzles. He loved crossword puzzles. You do them, and sometimes he'll call me like downstairs. He goes, 4-letter word for this and that. He used to say,
Yeah.
was it cheating if he went to a dictionary? That's a reference, he'd say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, what a good man. Uh,
But what
but
about the criminal side though? Because there's the criminal side.
it was
Can you?
brief. It was brief. It wasn't abused. Somebody came in for money, and there was somebody who were hardworking people. He didn't charge them juice or anything like that. I'm telling you, this fucking guy was definitely whatever you read about the mob sometimes, like they're good for the people, and people are like, yeah, right, and this and that. He was never missed a funeral,
Yeah.
anybody's funeral, always there. Worker, it didn't matter. It could be the guy who was the lowest guy in his company to the guy who was the best guy in his company.
Right.
Um,
Well, let me
didn't
ask you though.
want
I
money.
gotta listen. I gotta ask you this too, just to be fair, because it's like, okay, fine, businessman, successful product, selling to all types of stores around New York City. You get a bacon,
Yeah.
egg, and cheese on a Kaiser roll. It might be a Grimaldi product. Like, so why the need to be involved in that also?
What do you mean to be? I didn't get the question. I'm sorry.
Like, why the need to be a Bonanno crime family soldier or ultimately a captain? What's the need? What's the use?
He took it deeper than what other people don't know why they become gangsters.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I don't think he did looked at himself as a gangster. He looked at himself as a friend.
Interesting.
Um, yeah,
Fraternity, like a fraternity.
yes, and he came from he had friends back home that knew his dad. He had friends back in other places, which they probably still have. We're not going to mention. And he felt of it as a fraternity. It was a fraternity. He believed in he's an anti-commie, anti-fascist, like myself. When we were in that life,
Of course.
he was suppressed by these people, not him, but his families and everybody back home. So he was a firm believer.
Yeah.
I would say we both have very similar political views. Not no more because the fucking political system went down the fucking drain, but the Republicans, the right wingers, and all that shit of yesterday.
Yeah, it's all upside down. What might have been
We
liberal
didn't
20
like
years
them.
ago
We were
is
more like
not, you know.
the Democrats I
Right,
mean, look at the Republicans back then. They didn't like Italians at all.
right, right.
Your Guidos, all that crap. Very ahead of his time in regards to that, but he also would take a step back to reflect on what this whole thing started from, and that's what his thing was. I mean, they talk about, well, they shelved or whatever. He probably would have took that pretty hard. I don't know if they shelved him, not him, but I think his son-in-law or whatever. I don't know what was going on, but
Yeah, and they say the same thing about Joe C too, right? Same thing going
yeah, I,
around.
I don't know. We'll leave that to the Bernsteins
Yeah.
of the world.
Yeah, that's the rumors. It's the rumors. Yeah, but you spoke on his criminality, kind of what he was doing. I guess a money guy. But your criminality in connection to him, what are you doing?
He toned me down a lot. Like fucking, there was no talk of murder or anything like that.
Okay.
Um, don't get me wrong. If somebody rubbed him the wrong way, and we got into a little bit of a couple salts here and there, but it was his last. It was something he really didn't want to get into. He told me at one time to use my hands on somebody, and this guy was, I think, 6'4" and about 200, 300, about 280 pounds. So when me and my friends went there, I said, I ain't. This guy's he's gonna grab one of us and fuck us up. Just open the door, and there was a nightstick there. I took it. I took the rap for it. I said, I'm sorry. He got pissed. He said, what the fuck did I specifically told you? And I said, but he was big. And then, he
Yeah.
just forgot about it. But at the same time, the kid had robbed the machines.
Okay. Okay.
And he was one of these kids. He didn't do it once. He didn't do it twice. It was like his 10th time. Up to the point he said, yeah, you know what? Fucking, And
That's pretty nice, man. That's still pretty lenient.
I think it was like, yeah, he wasn't quick to the fucking, he didn't want that heat, but if he had to do something, he'd do it. Don't get me wrong. I've seen him crack motherfuckers too, that were like fucking, stealing on his business, which he would call his church.
He's got those bread kneading hands. I'm sure he's getting that. Got a nice fucking
he was a
smack
good
on him.
guy, quiet guy, but he got, who he was like the older he got. You ever see Paulie from Goodfellas?
Of course, yeah.
When he would walk in the room like that,
Yeah.
that exact same kind of temperament. And when you talk, come here, he'll give one of them with his hands, and I'd go over there, But a beautiful man. I miss him.
Yeah.
And a lot of things, a lot of probably fucking hates me, but it is what it is.
I saw something on YouTube somebody put up recently. It was talk about drugs or something, or
Yeah, that fucking James Proctor. Yeah, he said that he was associated with drugs. Yeah, bro, you want to get real fucking good lawsuit? That's a good way to do it.
okay. Just want to clear that one up because
Yeah, absolutely.
he's a guy no one really talks about. So if I
1,000% no, and I'm surprised at James because you got to investigate that shit. Was he friends with the guys that in the Pizza Connection case? But so was fucking the whole neighborhood. Were they selling drugs too? No.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
That's another thing. He never sued anybody in his life, so you're safe, James. And his family ain't gonna do the same thing. If I know Joe, you don't. Or as we say, I still haven't dialed 911 in my life, and either they. It's a shame. Listen. If I'm them and they tell me they're shoved, I'm like, okay, later.
Yeah.
I mean, who you spiting? You know what I mean? If that's what went down, who knows? Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, I mean,
You
the way
got all
I
these
see it as in
creators bullshitting and all that at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't comment on what's going on. I'm not a reporter or anything, so I really don't care what the status is. I would think that something like that would not even hurt their pocket really
What
one bit.
if Bernstein said
Or
having shootouts in Glen Cove? What the fuck are you talking about, bro?
shootout, yeah, yeah,
Have you
yeah.
ever been to Glen Cove?
Of
God,
course, I've been
man.
to Glen Cove a
Airport,
lot. Yeah,
shootings in Glen Cove.
very nice area, Glen
What I was
Cove.
thinking about. Remember that fucking shooting with the
Couple of shitty
Bonanno
blocks,
brothers
but
in The Godfather? He probably thinks Glen Cove is like that scene. You know what I
oh,
mean? You know, Michael Corleone says hello. God damn, these fucking people are on drugs.
yeah. Well, what can you do? What can you do? They hear something from this guy and that guy. I don't know. You know how many? You don't know how many fucking telephones it went through before it gets to some of them. But
Shit. Yeah.
but yeah, I got no interest in that stuff, whatever. So he passed away, what is that, about 3 years ago at this point, 2, 3 years ago. And we spoke about that. We touched on it before. There was an incident at the funeral home over at Glen Cove, some sort of a brawl. Apparently, Joe C was not supposed to show up, and a fight breaks out, and something to do with bikers. Many of you listening heard this story before. Pretty embarrassing, though, huh, Frank?
Yeah. Yeah. If it went down, I wasn't there. I really seldom. I really don't like to talk about
Of
active
course
fuck.
not. Of course not. I mean,
If
I'm
I
only
do
bringing
talk
it
about
up because
active
it was in the
things
news.
that, yeah,
It's in
things
the
that
news. It's not a mob tube fucking chatterbox thing. It really was in the press. That's the only reason why I would bring it up.
no, 100%. No, 100%. I get it. No. I get it. I'm talking about for other things too, as far as other things are concerned. That
Of
if,
course.
if
Okay.
there's statute of limitations or whatever, I'll touch on stuff. But
Right. Right.
I'm not looking to get anybody jammed up.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Well, interesting. Any last words on Vito Grimaldi? Let me get a little how good is the bread? I mean, I've had it before, but
Very good.
yeah,
Yeah, it's very good. Very good.
they've been
And
in the
I
business for a long time,
believe
huh?
they still have a retail store.
Uh-huh.
Should have. Yeah, I think they have a. Yep, they still have a retail store.
Yeah. Yeah.
Google Earth. I mean, I see it. But
Any last words on Vito Grimaldi?
now I'm trying to think. I mean, we're gonna touch on them a lot of times. There's we as the show gets on, there's a sit down that I have to go to, and I don't know I'm fucking gonna come out of that fucking thing whacked or whatever. And he was one of the guys that was there.
Okay.
We'll talk about other stuff too. Yeah. Other stuff we were involved in, but not major.